Do you need to do control arms on a Toyota or a Lexus and the engine mount is right on top of the bolts and the procedure calls for remove the engine? Nuts and bolts with Tone here, guys, and today I have a 2015 Lexus Hybrid 4-cylinder. Now, for many years, Toyota and Lexus did the same exact thing for their front ends. Their control arms are the same. They bolt in the same. They're underneath the engine and trans mounts, and it is a piece of cake to do this work. The book calls for removing the engine a lot of times, and you don't have to do that. The reason they do that is because the engine mount sits on top of the control arm. It's actually not that difficult to do it. Now, in this video, because it's a hybrid, I show you how to do it on the engine side. The engine and transmission is the same in a non-hybrid vehicle, and I explain that. But about a third of the way through, I show you how to do it because it's a hybrid. They want you to remove the inverter and do all of this unnecessary work that you don't have to do. So we're gonna get this done without all kinds of extra work. And got some Ray-Ban Meta glasses. You may have noticed that in my videos. So I'm trying to give you a little bit different of a not just do this, but a little bit more of a perspective video. So at the end, I do a bunch of POV to show you how I do things, ball joints, tighten things up, cotter pins, and just give you the real life aspect of doing the job. I hope you enjoy. Before we get started, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell. You get notified of all my future content, which you definitely don't want to miss. All right, let's jump right in. 2015 hybrid Lexus, and we're going to be doing some control arms. First step is to take the dog bone off. Now, this is a 15 hybrid, so it's a little bit more involved dog bone. So this one here, we have the regular mounting. And I mean, I could have just undid this bolt and pulled it out. I don't want to touch this bolt. So what I did was, we have a ground strap here, right there. And then we have a 14, a 14, a 14. We have this 14, and we have another one. So this 14 goes over to here. Right there, sorry. So this just sits in here, like that. So you're just gonna undo all the bolts, and the whole thing just slides out. Now we do this because we're gonna have to put the engine on the pull jacks, and we get more movement if we have the dog bone off. All right, next step's pretty obvious. We're gonna take the wheels off. Then you're gonna take off these two little plastic covers. You're gonna have a 10 here, a 10 here, and you're gonna have a little plastic clip up inside here. Can't show you that, it's too hard to get to. It's too hard to see it, actually. And same thing on this side. Now, you don't really have to take it off this side. I'm doing it just to get it out of the way, because we're gonna be having to undo the tranny mount and the engine mount on the other side, because we have to lift up the engine because the control arm bolts are underneath the engine mount. So we gotta get them out. So we got control arm bolt back there, and we have two bolts up here. Show you that when we get this up. The next step is not so obvious for everyone unless you do this for a living, but next step is you're gonna wanna inspect your parts and check your parts. So this is what your control arms are gonna look like. You're gonna have two bolts that go through here that are really tight. You're gonna have a bolt that comes up through the bottom for that. And you got a ball joint here. Now, I do this a little different, so I'm gonna take the ball joint off of this new control arm, because that way I can take this arm on and off, and then connect the ball joint after the fact. I'll show you that, but that's just how I do it. Makes it easy. So now that we've got that stuff out of the way, now you're gonna need a pull jack, and we're gonna go ahead and first disconnect some components here. All right, so step one, you're gonna take a cotter pin out of here, and I'll show you a clip of how to break this nut loose right now. All right, let's take this cotter pin out of here on each side, and we're gonna break this loose. And we'll just do that. And just kind of hammer it through. We'll grab it like this, and just kind of walk it out. That one came out pretty good. We'll save this guy. We're gonna put him right there. All right, and let's get this guy out. There we go, pretty straight, look at that. That's gonna be a good cotter pin right there. That's definitely a reuser. I don't know, you guys reuse cotter pins? All right, And we're gonna go with, pretty sure it's a 17. I'm gonna go ahead and zap this guy. There's that guy. And now we got both of them in there. All right, we'll put one on each side, and then let me show you how we break these loose. We got all kinds of ways to do this. Easiest way is this way. Look at that, boom, 2 hits. So much easier than getting a tool out. Now here's a tip though, you gotta be real careful where this stud sticks through the bottom here. Can't tell you how many times you accidentally go to hit this and you hit the stud and you damage it and you can't fix it and you have to replace the tie rod or ball joint or whatever. That makes your service advisors real happy. Or if it's your own car, it's gonna make you real happy. So we're gonna go ahead and put this back in because I forgot. I wanted to do something first. We're gonna break this loose. I'm gonna hit that a few times. Let's see if we broke it loose. I don't think we broke that one loose. We didn't break that one loose. All right, we'll do that tomorrow. All right, so you see I got a pull jack underneath this ball joint here. What happened is as I was turning the nut, the stud was just spinning with the nut and I couldn't get the nut to break free. So what you do is you put a pull jack or a floor jack underneath the ball joint and you apply pressure and it pushes the ball joint up in the bore more with more pressure and it allows you to break that nut loose and turn that nut. And it worked on this one here. I couldn't get it broke loose. So now that I got this broke loose, I ended up just hitting it a few more times with a hammer and I broke it loose. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the bolts and nuts out of these ball joints. So go ahead and take your tie rods out and grab your gun, your socket, got the top down there, just scoping a cooling system job that I'm doing, that I just got done doing over there on a Tahoe. So we're going to take a 17 milli and we're going to zap off the 2 nuts and 1 bolt on each side. And then we're going to pull the arms down, unthread the nut off the ball joint. We're going to get the ball joints out of here. Now, all these bolts, nuts are all going to go in the garbage because you have new ones on your control arms. So now we're going to pull that down, get the nut off, and now we'll be able to position the ball joint and get it out of there. Now for getting the ball joints out and the arms down, I got this S hook from OTC. And you slide down on the control arm there. And all it does is give you an easy place to get leverage. So we just slide the pry bar in there and we can pull the arm down like that and lift the ball joint up out of the arm and out of the knuckle and get it out of there. Now what's going to keep it is the heat shield or dust shield. Right there, you got to pull the dust shield away to slip the ball joint out. Now the key is when you're done, not to forget to bend the dust shield back away from the ball joint. Now on this job, it's funny because I said this, and on one side I remembered to bend the heat shield, the dust shield back, but on the other side I forgot, and I left, and it started making a noise, so I had to come back and bend it out of the way. Now I will give you a disclaimer on these Toyotas, Lexus, Toyota. They're very similar for a lot of years. The transmission side is the most difficult side to do because, I mean, the way we do it, the easy way is you jack up the transmission, you undo the mount nut here, and you undo the 3 bolts under here. There's a little cover there, there, and there. And you jack up the transmission until the transmission is up and over the top of the mount stud. You pry it out. You pull the mount out, you replace the arm, you put it back. The transmission side is the absolute hardest side. The engine side is easy. The engine side, you have lots of room. There's not a bracket hanging over. And this one lifts right up, no problem. So, all right, comes out like this. So we've jacked up the engine. 2x4 here. Since we took the dog bone out, we have more room to jack this up, although you can get this out with the dog bone in. So now we can go ahead and slip this out. We had the 3 nuts here, 3 nuts. But there is one little thing. So on older models to have power steering, this ear right here, there's a power steering hose that goes across here, a line that goes across here. And right back here, you have to take out a 10mm bolt that goes over that ear right there. And then you can move the line out of the way. And then just put it back. Most people don't. They leave it out. You can always tell when this mount's been taken out because people don't put that bolt back. But anyway, so now this is out. So now we can access these bolts. So we got these 2 big guys here, one on each side. Now there is a metal shim here on the back side of the control arm, and I'll show you that when we get it off. And you're gonna have a bolt right here. All right, here's what I use to break these loose. You got the Milwaukee here. We got the 19. We got a nut on top. You got to hold on to that. I'm going to use the Milwaukee right angle impact here. Got the SunX Tools impact wobble sockets here. So I haven't done anything to this. I haven't broke anything loose. You can see that spun it loose there. Let me go ahead and show you this side. Now this side has a shim. We have to make sure we put it back. Let's see. And there we go. Just like that. And just like that. This thing is so worth it. Can't believe I waited so long to get that. And so now, since we got this out, we can go ahead and finish taking this out. And now we're going to need a pry bar. So now, since we took this out, we have room here. So I'm going to go ahead and just take a pry bar like this. And just sometimes these pop right out. Sometimes they want to fight you. And like that, it's out. And now we got this shim here that needs to go back in. And it's right there. So I'll put this on the new one. Next step, what I do is I go ahead and take this ball joint off of here. So I'm going to zap this off. We'll get this control arm on. All right, you're going to go ahead and put it up in here like this. No, I don't put the ear on yet. Just leave that off for a minute. Try to stand this up the best you can. I'm going to try to hammer this over. You want this to be as straight as possible. So what we can do, once we get this close, so it's going to be cockeyed. So what we're going to do is we're going to just get this where we can get something in here. We're going to take a lady's foot like this. We're going to take this, and we're going to just like that. Bend it, okay? Then from here, we're going to leave this loose. We're going to grab our bolt here. Sometimes you gotta use a pry bar. And what you want to do you don't want to hammer it because you'll damage the threads. What you want to do is get like this. So we need to pry the top in. So we're just going to do that. And there we go. And then once you get it close, the threads pull it up in. And now we can put the nut on. So all we're going to do is put the nut on. We're going to leave it like that. Let me run the nut in just a little bit. All right, now that's on. Now we got to put the ear on. This inside one here. You may have to lift up on the control arm. Like that. And there we go. And now we just need to line up these holes. So one tricky part you could have is getting both of these bolts to go in. So on this one here, aftermarket control arms are kind of tricky. Sometimes they go right in, and sometimes you battle them. So I was able to put a lady's foot up through here and pry the arm around where I could get this bolt to go down and get almost all the way in. Then this bolt, though, I wasn't able to get it to go. So what I had to do was put a pry bar like this over here, like that. And I had to pry the arm in while pushing, and then I was able to get the bolts in. So it can be kind of tricky with aftermarket control arms. So once you get these two bolts tight, go ahead and tighten up this with the nut, and then we're going to pull this down, and we're going to get the ball joint on here. I'll show you what that looks like. But as soon as you get these bolts tight here and you're done with this, go ahead and put your engine mount back in, so that way it's not sitting on this oil pan for super long. I'm going to get the oil. Let's see. All right. We're just going to set this in like that. We're going to lower the engine. And then once it gets close, you just want to kind of push the mount so that way it goes in the hole even and it doesn't damage the threads. And there we go. And now we're going to be able to come off of this pole jack here like that. And now we can go ahead and tighten down this engine mount and get this ball joint in. All right, so here's how we're going to get the ball joint in. So you're going to use this tool here called a S-hook. We're just going to go from right there. And then this way we can pull the arm down and we get leverage. You see how we do that there. And then what we can do is, so we're going to, before we do that though, we need to get the ball joint in its hole. So we're going to get the ball joint in. We're going to turn this to the side. And then we're going to pull this down and then slip it up and over. Let me show you here. Okay. So we're going to have that there. We're going to rotate that. And then we can line it up. You see how easy that was? And bring this up first. You gotta be real careful with these ball joints. I've had these aftermarket ball joint control arms strip out. So I like to go by hand just to make sure. All right, so now we're connected there. So now before we put now we want to get this back on before we connect the ball joint. And yeah, 17 milli. All right, we gotta get the cotter pin hole lined up.
So and since the cotter pin is aimed at the knuckle, we got to cut the cotter pin off a little bit.
You always want to go tighter.
If we had seen this earlier, we could have spun the ball joint before we put it in. So we're going to cut it off so we're able to stick it in and bend it up and over the ball joint. So that way it is secure.
And there we go. So that's in. Now remember,
and
one
just
thing we
like
have to
this,
do,
you'll see with the cutters, I grab it,
right
pull
here.
it,
You don't
twist
bend
it,
this
and
back.
pull it up and over
You're going to go
the
drive
top.
it, and this is going to be rubbing. You have to pull it back in. So now, we got to get this tight. So what I like to use is a dead blow. So we're gonna run that as much as we
So
can.
from here, I actually cut the end of this
And now we need to
part
line
that
up
sticks
this cotter
straight
pin
out.
as
I cut it
well.
off so it doesn't hit anything.
So we got to find
This
the cotter
nut's
pin.
not
Okay,
going
so
anywhere as long
unfortunately
as you
it's
got
right
it tight.
to there.
So I thought we were done, but I forgot we have to do the mount nuts, the nuts for the mount.
So it's in the worst possible
and
place.
I grabbed the wrong one. So this is pretty funny. I put the nuts on. I'm trying to put them on, and they're not going anywhere because, well, they don't go to that.
A tiny bit more.
These are the old ball joint hardware from the old ball joint. So we got to take all this off and just throw it in the trash, which I should have done in the first place.
We had 2 brand new cotter pins here.
And now let's find our hardware. So for the bottom, these are all 17. So 3 17mm nuts, and
so
the top one is a 19.
What we're gonna do.
So you're going to go ahead and take all 3 of those,
cut this off
and zap those on and get it tight, just like that. And I use the new the new stubby impact from Milwaukee with the 5-amp battery. It puts out like 500 foot-pounds, something like that, 550. So, and then the top one is a 19, and then don't forget your little covers underneath. So once we get all that on, then the mount is up and secure. And then we just have to put the plastic cover on the side. Don't forget your nut on top of the mount, and this side's all done.
So to put this in when it's like
so
this,
for this top nut here, I like to use these Capri Tools extra long double box.
You just want to kind of twist it and pull
wrenches here, and it'll pull to tighten those down,
and then bend it over the top. Now all this is to make sure that the nut doesn't spin.
Thank you, Tone with Volts here with another episode. We got a Lexus. We're doing control arms. You got to take this motor mount out. Super important. Shortcut the whole job. We don't got to put the engine on the ground. Nothing. Good to go. You're the technician, heard for hours. You're going to want to recommend these for the great pay and the least amount of work you got to do.
All right. So a normal non-hybrid, we would just put a pull jack here, support the tranny, push the tranny up, and we would get this engine mount out. But this is a hybrid, and we can't because the inverter's up there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drop the subframe down enough to get this mount out. So you wanna make sure your ball joint is out here, okay? We've disconnected the tie rod. So you're gonna go ahead and come back over to this side and take these clips back off. This is only if you're doing it that way. So we're gonna take these off. You're gonna take off this one here in the front up here. Okay, so we're gonna have 3 nuts for the front, right there, and in here. Okay, and this mount is attached to the engine. You're gonna have 110 right on top of this little bracket here, right there. You're gonna take that out. This is for the high voltage cable that's attached to this bracket. Okay, so that's gonna stay with the engine mount and with the engine. Then what we're gonna do is go ahead and take these out, right here, on both sides. You're going to come back here and you're going to take these out. You're going to come over here You're going to disconnect your steering shaft right there and put a seat belt through your steering wheel so your steering wheel doesn't move, so you don't damage your clock spring. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put a pole jack here and here, and we're going to support the engine and transmission. Or you can put a tranny jack, whatever you want to put through here, because we want the engine and transmission to stay up. Then we're going to put a pole jack on each side.
And now it's time to get the arm out. So we're going to take a pry bar and pry this side over here.
Slowly lower
and this
the
one's going to come out a lot easier than the other side.
Bolt, that bolt, this bolt,
don't forget the shim that I dropped on the floor.
All right, so here's what I got going on. You can do this with floor jacks. You don't have to necessarily have a transmission jack. So I've got the engine and the tranny supported by a big jack here, okay? So I've taken out the nuts for this front mount.
So now we're going to go ahead and put the arm in. You're going to go ahead and get it as straight as possible. And if you get it just right, you can actually put it in without even using a dead blow.
These two bolts on the driver's side,
and now before I
down
turn it, we're going to go ahead and put the bolt
2
in. And we can get it all the way up. We're going to put that nut on there to hold it in place.
Sitting there.
And that way,
I got it on a pole jack here. You
don't
don't necessarily have to have it on a pole jack. It's just
the other side.
You can see where the engine mount is on this side here.
Before I put the bolt in, so it just made it more difficult.
Then what I did was I pulled the subframe down,
and we're going to slide this up and over
this mount
so we can work on getting these two bolts in.
Now we can address this.
Now I will say this side was a lot easier
get this mount back
than
in
the other side,
and get the
and I don't
subframe
know
back
if it
up.
was because the subframe was dropped down.
Now that we've got the mount out of here, we got the subframe dropped down, we got everything supported here. Now we're going to go ahead and knock this control arm out of here.
Pretty darn easy.
You're going to need a 19.
And then use the right angle impact. You can get them started and tighten them down.
All right. And then you go ahead and just take that all the way out. Right there. And now we need right angle impact. Go ahead and get these bolts out of here. Feet to the other side. We're going to go ahead and take this ball joint off of here.
All right, so now that we got the mount in and we got it bolted to the subframe, now we got to run the subframe up and get everything reattached so we can bring it all up together. So since I still have the bolts on the other side, the subframe stayed lined up, but I took the bolts out on the driver's side because I needed to pull the subframe down further. So here I'm going to go ahead and get the bolts started, and don't forget your little plates that go on each corner. So we're going to go ahead and get that started and get those lined up. Get everything in place before we start tightening anything down. Because once you start tightening things down, they don't line up, everything is all messed up, and then you have to undo it, or you damage something. So going to go ahead and run this in and get it all lined up and get ready to reattach all of the hardware. Now, because I ended up doing this in like kind of two different parts, like I did one part of just doing the control arm on the one side, and then I went to having to drop the subframe on the other side. My control arm is bolted in. I kind of had stuff all over the place, so I had all the bolts and nuts on the bench.
Now, it doesn't come out as easy as I acted like.
And these are all the same.
You have to kind of pry down.
So now we can make sure all the engine mounts are lined up.
You know, you have to
get everything lined up here, and then we can go ahead and start tightening it all down.
We have to pull down on this.
On which one, Tony?
What?
On which one? Oh. Are you filming right now?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. You're not bothering me. No, I'm fine. I'm fine.
So now you want to be careful with the subframe bolts. Now, using the Milwaukee 1/2-inch impact is a great tool, but you have to be careful because it's really powerful, and you can actually over tighten things that you didn't think you could over tighten. So now that we've got that all secure, we can drop the pole jacks and we can get all the brackets bolted up. Then once you're done with all the brackets, you want to make sure that all of your engine mount nuts are all on both sides and the front. You're going to go ahead and put all those on, and then we can go and put these covers on, covering up all the holes in the subframe. If you have them, chances are you're missing some because people take them out. Don't put them back. So next up, we have the ball joint nut on the driver's side. Well, actually the ball joint and then the nut. So now here's a fun fact. So I talk so much about the heat shield or the dust shield and bending it back. The other side, I put the ball joint in, got all done, and I bent the heat shield
now we want to
back.
go ahead
This
and
side,
bolt the
I did
subframe back
not.
up.
So I went on a test
All right,
drive,
we're just going to run
and then
these
when I
up.
got back, I had to pull it in the shop.
We want to
and
do everything
bend
a little
the
bit at a
dust shield out of
time.
the way because I
You don't want to
forgot.
pinch
This is kind of
anything.
funny because I said in the video,
Okay.
don't forget, don't forget, don't
That
forget. And then I
That
forgot.
one.
Now this S-hook,
That
I've
one.
done a video with this, and I've had
Right.
so many people
All right,
complain
now
about how there's other ways to do it and
you want to make sure
cheaper
they're tight.
ways. This S-hook costs less than
Okay.
20 bucks. So if you do this for a living, that S-hook is going to
But be
make
careful,
you
don't
money.
go too tight. You don't want to
If you
break these
don't
things.
do this for a
You don't
living
want to have to rethread
and
them.
you're just doing this one time, then the S-hook's probably not a good idea for you. So once you get the ball joint lined up, go ahead and drop the studs in the holes and go ahead and put your nuts on, and then you can run your bolt in. And once you have all three on, go ahead and pull your ball joint down even with the control arm, and then go ahead and zap it in. The other side, the bolt wouldn't line up for some reason at first. On this side, the bolt lined up right away. So I was able to run it in, keep it together, then grab a gun and zap it on. Now here's where I put my S-hook. I have a Sunex Tools magmat on my lift arm, and I keep my S-hook right there on my lift arm between my two lifts. I also have a STS Auto Design magnetic holder right there for pry bars, and it holds my Mayhew 58-inch Dominator pry bar right there. Now sometimes I've got to break out that big 58-inch pry bar. Kind of bummed my 3/8 long neck snap-on cordless ratchet, which I haven't had for an extremely amount of time. It kind of died on me. It just works and then it doesn't work, and it works and it doesn't work. So I will be getting a new one, but I think I'm going to wait until next year when the new Milwaukee ratchets come out. And so now we got to put the tie rods on and go ahead and get your nut and tighten those down, and we'll be putting the cotter pins in and getting that all situated. All right, now it's time to tighten up the tie rod nuts. Now, one thing I was taught was with tie rods, ball joints, things
Now,
like
before
that.
we put this
if
nut
you-
on,
if your
remember before we
cotter
tighten this
pins
nut
don't
down,
line up,
we're going to go
you
ahead
tighten
and
them more
tighten
until
up
the holes
these.
line up. You don't ever back the nuts off. Now, if you're dealing with a floating
I always
bearing,
double check these by
then
hand
where there's
because I've
like
had
a
them strip out, like
preload,
I said.
then you back it off.
I know it
You
seems
don't ever
dumb,
go
but you don't
tighter
want
to make the
you
cotter
don't want to
pin
replace
fit.
the control arm again.
So here we go. I'm just moving it a
All right.
little bit, getting
So there's
everything
that.
lined up.
Now, before we do
And
anything
gonna pop
else,
these
we
cotter
need
pins
to.
in, bend them over, and be done with these tie rods. Just like that.
You know what?
I'll tell you one thing that I really love, and it
Actually,
makes
what we need
things
to
so
do
efficient for me, is having this Sunex Tools mechanics
is we
table
need
here.
to put
I put all my tools on there
this back in
and the nuts,
first
cotter
and
pins. I roll
foremost,
it around side to side
because I
and
have
get the
looked
whole
at this
job
bolt
done.
3 times now.
And now we got to
And
get the ball
every
joints
time I look
done,
at
get
it,
the nuts on so we can get the cotter
I say
pins
I'm going to
in.
do it in a
So I'm
second.
going to tighten this down.
Then I
And
forget.
one of the things that works real well is you want to make
Got
sure
the
your
quarter
tie rods
wobble
are
here.
connected. And then use a
Gonna go ahead
wrench,
and
get the
just,
nut tight. And then once you can't turn it anymore,
be
you're going to
careful,
take
'cause
it and you're
it's a
going to hit it with a
funky
dead
angle.
blow until your cotter pin hole
All
lines
right,
up.
there we go.
And that's going to be tight enough to get it done. Now on this one, we lucked out because the cotter pin hole was side to side. So we're able to slide it right through and get it done versus the other side where it was aimed at the knuckle and we had to bend it over and it was a pain. There's a funny little tech tip for you when you're doing ball joints. I just always forget. Before you put your ball joint in, if you take the cotter pin hole and you turn it to the side before you put it in, it'll be lined up correctly. But if you just put it in the way it's supposed to, 9 times out of 10, I swear it's aimed the wrong direction. So when it's side to side like this, it makes things so much easier. Now, when I finish a big job like this, I want to go and double check and just kind of go around and make sure I put all my nuts on, make sure all the covers are on, the clips are on, the cotter pins, because when you've done so many different aspects of a job, dropping the subframe control arms, it's easy to miss something. And the last little thing, I'm going to learn you guys something here. If you are doing the alignment on your vehicle and you're not taking it somewhere, here is a really big tech tip. So on the end of your rack and pinion, you have a bellows boot, and it is a rubber boot with a clamp right there. There's a clamp at the rack and there's a clamp at the tie rod. So most of the time that rubber boot is stuck to the tie rod. So when you do an alignment, you loosen up the nut for the outer tie rod and you turn the inner tie rod that's connected inside the boot. Well, most of the time the boot is stuck to the tie rod. So when you turn the tie rod, the boot spins. Well, when you're doing an alignment, sometimes it's kind of hard to get up to the bellows boot depending on the way you have it on the rack, depending on where they fall on the vehicle. So what I do is I take the clamps off and I get a pick, a 90-degree pick, and I dip it in Sil Glide grease. It doesn't matter. And then I slide it in the boot where the boot rides on the tie rod. And then I rub the pick around all the way around. So there's Sil Glide all the way around. Then I put the clamp back on. Now you would think that with the clamp back on, it's still going to have a problem, but the grease allows it to spin. So when you're doing the alignment, you can loosen up your nut for your outer tie rod, turn the inner tie rod, and the boot does not spin. You do not have to mess with the boot. You can literally just adjust it and then tighten the outside nut. Works like butter. I do it every time, and it makes things a lot easier. So just a little tech tip for you to make things easy. You don't want to spin that bellows boot and rip it.
After watching this video, I'm really hoping that you enjoy this style of video. I'm trying to add in the POV, trying to give you guys a little bit more of a perspective, not just a do this, do this, do this. Sometimes it's good to see how people are doing things. You can tell people to take a pry bar and a lady's foot and do this, but until you see it, sometimes it just doesn't make sense. So I hope you enjoy that, and I hope you enjoy the added footage of seeing me do a lot of this part of this job through my eyes with the glasses. Drop a comment down below and let me know if you like this added feature, the POV, the little bit extra footage I've been adding to the videos where you can see me actually doing the job, or if you prefer, just do this, do this, do this, and just cut to the chase. So drop a comment down below, and I appreciate all the support. Thank you. See you guys next time.